Wings of Fire has a lot of plot holes. There's the fact that hive wings are hideously inbred, but there aren't many consequences for that, like them getting sick more often. There's Darkstalker's bracelet. How did it manage to not get broken for over 2,000 years with Darkstalker constantly growing? Did it somehow grow along with him? And one of the largest plot holes which seems to affect the series consistently is the aging issue. So let's dive right into it and try to make sense of aging in Wings of Fire. Before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please think about subscribing. I regularly post both Wings of Fire and Warrior Cats content, so you'll never be bored. And to my current subscribers, thank you so much for supporting me. I won't get on here without y'all. Let's get into the issue. I feel like the first time I became aware of the aging issue was with Onyx. She's a 19-year-old dragon going to school with 2 to 7-year-olds and isn't even disguised as one of them. But this video isn't about the issues with Onyx, it's specifically about the maturity when it comes to dragon aging, so let's save that for another video, which I promise I will do. Since then, my eyes have only opened more to the troubles and inaccuracies of aging. So let's start with things that aren't inaccuracies and tend to be pretty solid and cemented in the world. Number 1 is that dragons age rapidly. The second one is that it tends to slow down when they hit 7, the dragon age of maturity. The next one I've seen a few times but can't find a concrete source for, but dragons may live on average to 150 years. Next, onto the inaccuracies. Let's talk about an enemy. She can read, formulate complex sentences, has complex emotions, and makes her own decisions. She plans to kill her own mother as well. I'd guess her age in human years to be around 12 to 13 years old. Then there's Clearsight at the beginning of Darkstalker, who is constantly tracking every possibility of the future and manages to be better seer than the tribe's main seer at her age. If I had to guess an age for her, I'd say maybe 13, because she's getting pressured to go to school, and it reminds me of how parents will often pressure their homeschooled kids to go to school for public high school. Now, let's talk about Mink. She is portrayed to be very, very immature and childish. If I had to guess an age for her, I'd say 7 is the maximum, but I've had other people say that she came off as 5 or so to them. What if I told you that these 3 characters, who act incredibly differently and have different maturities, are all 2 years old? You likely wouldn't believe me, even though dragons age rapidly at that time period. They're just too different. How can an inconsistency like that fly? It gets even stranger when you realize that Tui said that Moon, a dragon twice an enemy's age at the age of 4, is supposed to be 14 or 15. That would make sense if 2 in dragon was the same as 7 in human, as dragons at that age are rapidly aging, if Mink was how dragons at 2 were supposed to act. But there are 2 other examples of dragons at her age, acting way more mature, which seems to overrule that. Some people say that the reason why Mink was less mature is because she was exposed to less stressors than an enemy and Clearsight were at the same age. However, I still do not think that explains it well enough. The gap is just too big. I feel like an enemy and Clearsight are how 2-year-olds are supposed to be. So what are dragonettes like between the mythical ages of 2 and 4? Well, Darkstalker was 3 at the beginning of Darkstalker. He was hunting for his family, responsible enough to keep his scroll to himself, etc. Maturity-wise, I'd say he was 14, 15 max. The dragonettes age 5 also act very similar to the dragons who are age 4. Winter and Turtle are both 5 and they act very similar to Moon, who is 4, and Winter is even shipped with Moon in canon. Then there are the adult dragons, or should I say quote-unquote adult dragons. I've said the dragons who reach the age of 7 are concretely adults. The narrative treats them as adults. The TLDR are old enough to found a school without any dragon blinking twice. They are considered grown enough to make their own choices and show reprehension at being referred to as the dragonettes of destiny. They aren't dragonettes, they are just dragons. However, dragons who are 7 are also treated as children in the narrative. Umber is repeatedly characterized as being younger than he really is. He's drawn smaller in the first arc graphic novels and is attracted to dragons who are concretely supposed to be teens in human years, whilst Umber is supposed to be an adult according to his age. Other 7-year-old dragons are also written in the same maturity as their younger peers and are also treated as students and not as fully grown dragons. We are supposed to respect 7-year-old dragons as figures of authority, and at the same time are supposed to accept dragons who are born on the exact same day as students with the maturity of their peers, who are 5 years old or so. It is illogical and confusing. Some dragons who are older than the age of dragon maturity and the DoD act less mature than them. Sky acts at the same level of maturity as Kinkajou, however one could say that was due to him growing up isolated from other dragons. Peril is the same way, she's written the same way as the other protagonists of her arc despite the age gap between her and the rest. Fierce Teeth, a dragon of 9 years of age, is described in The Brightest Night as being little over the age of a dragonette herself, which implies that 9-year-olds are considered maybe around the age of 20-year-olds that humans have. However, that brings us back to the authority problem. If 9-year-olds are considered to be barely adults, how are 8-year-olds trusted to run an entire damn school? I've mainly been talking about dragonettes, however much older dragons suffer from strange age scaling as well. Onyx, a 19-year-old dragon, attends Jade Mountain Academy. She is supposed to be a more mature dragon and is almost 4 times the age of Keebly, however is still at school. It would be understandable if it was a super senior situation if she was around the age of 22 in human years, or if Jade Mountain Academy offered college level courses that she was taking. However, Onyx is meant to be around the same age as Queen Thorn, and it's pointed out many times. Queen Thorn being around 35 if I were to put a number on her. Jade Mountain Academy does not have any advanced courses, and it is entirely populated with dragons much younger than her, which really makes one wonder why she was accepted for the academy. I'll go over Onyx much more in depth in a later video though. With the age scaling, Jade Mountain Academy simultaneously makes sense and not a lot of sense. Sure, the student body covers a broad range of ages, from ages 2 to 9 with Onyx as an outlier, but all the dragons included are considered teenage by the writing, so they wouldn't need classes to cover each grade. At the same time, the teachers are included in the age bracket of being 2 to 9 and hence should be included in being teenaged in the writing, but aren't. With the teachers the same age as their students, in my opinion, Jade Mountain should not be able to function. I'm a junior in high school, and if someone my age came into my classes and said they were going to teach me from now on, I wouldn't take them seriously. The aging issue breaks the world in that regard. The aging issue also affects the most important part of any fandom, no matter how big or small the fandom may be: shipping. There's the obvious case of Glorybringer, which has been argued about constantly. If you want to know my take on it, it's that, following the theme of this video, Tui was inconsistent in her timelines and accidentally wrote Deathbringer to be older than she intended him to be. However, if we do consider Deathbringer as canonically 13, which I do even though it was a mistake, it's still written in canon, one thing that exacerbates the problem with this ship is that the paradox of the 7-year-old dragons being treated as both mature individuals and as students needing guidance makes Glory be a bit dicey on the radar. If you interpret her as being the latter, the aging issue does not work in the ship's favor. She is a student and shouldn't be with Deathbringer, but if you interpret her as being the former, then the ship is a-okay. Tsunami and Riptide have an age gap, and so do Peril and Clay, but to a much lesser extent. In fact, Peril and Riptide are both within the somehow written to be teenage sometime zone, so maybe in some cases, the aging issue works in the ship's favor. Tui has stated several times that there isn't meant to be a direct dragon-to-human conversion, so we will probably never get any answers as to what rate dragons truly age. However, that doesn't prevent me from wishing that she made one in order to prevent outliers like Mink from cropping up, or for Deathbringer's age to not have been made way older than she intended. Couldn't an editor have caught that? We don't need an author to make up age charts for us though, considering death of the author, especially when it comes to fandom works. But when it comes to canon, in my opinion, ages 2 to 9 are written to be around ages 12 to 20 in human, with a few inconsistencies thrown in like Mink. The rest, I do not know and I do not care, and I really do not want to spend more time over a puzzle for which we will never get a solution for, and which in the end doesn't really matter because these are talking dragon books. But what is your opinion on the subject? Should the Dragonettes of Destiny be running a school at their age? What does the age of being 2 mean? Being a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old? And most importantly to most fans, where do you draw the line when it comes to shipping? Or rather, when? If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. I make Wings of Fire and Warrior Cats videos pretty often, and your support would mean a lot to me. And to those who've already subscribed, thank you for your continued support. I wouldn't have gone here without y'all. Rogan out.